For decades, we believed we were alone in our corner of the solar system. NASA tracked asteroids, comets, and space debris with precision. Thousands of objects cataloged, their trajectories mapped years in advance. Our surveillance systems were flawless, or so we thought. But in March 2024, during a routine review of archival telescope data, a junior analyst at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory noticed something that should have been impossible. A signal pattern buried in old recordings, repeating, consistent, deliberate. And it had been there for years, hiding in plain sight. The object, quickly designated QX437, wasn't following any natural orbital path. Asteroids tumble. Comets follow predictable elliptical routes dictated by gravity and momentum. But QX437 was different. It was adjusting its trajectory, making micro-corrections, compensating for gravitational influences with precision that defied natural explanation, almost as if it were being piloted, almost as if it were watching us. When NASA engineers ran the trajectory calculations backwards, feeding years of positional data into their orbital mechanics software, they discovered something that sent a chill through the entire facility. QX437 had been matching Earth's orbit since at least 2019, not crossing it, not intersecting it, matching it. The object maintained a consistent distance of roughly 42 million kilometers, staying just far enough to avoid detection by our standard near-Earth object tracking systems. It was deliberately hiding in the sun's glare, using our own star as a shield against observation. At first, senior scientists dismissed it as a data anomaly. Space is full of radiation. Cosmic rays corrupt sensor readings. Old telescope data gets degraded over time. It had to be a malfunction, a ghost signal created by overlapping images or software glitches. But when 3 independent observatories, including facilities in Chile, Australia, and Hawaii, confirmed the readings using different instruments and methodologies, the room at Mission Control went silent. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't corrupted data. This was real. QX437 wasn't an asteroid. It wasn't a comet. It wasn't a piece of space debris from decades of human launches. And it definitely wasn't ours. Yet it had been following Earth, shadowing our planet's journey around the sun for at least 6 years, maybe longer. The object itself was relatively small, roughly the size of a standard school bus, measuring approximately 12 meters in length. In the vastness of space, that's practically invisible. But its behavior was anything but ordinary. It maintained a mathematically perfect distance from Earth, never drifting too far into deep space, never venturing too close to our planet. When Earth's orbital velocity increased during certain points in our elliptical path, QX437 adjusted its speed to match. When our planet slowed down, it slowed down proportionally. The precision was unnerving. The consistency was impossible to explain through natural phenomena. NASA's Deep Space Network, an array of massive radio telescopes designed to communicate with distant spacecraft, was immediately redirected. Engineers sent radio signals across multiple frequencies, hoping for any kind of response. Silence. They transmitted mathematical sequences, prime numbers, the kind of universal language that any intelligent civilization should recognize. Nothing came back. Infrared scans were conducted, revealing a faint but consistent heat signature that didn't match any known asteroid or comet composition. The thermal profile suggested internal activity, something generating or regulating temperature in a way that space rocks simply don't do. Spectral analysis provided even more disturbing results. When light from distant stars passed near QX437, the reflected spectrum showed absorption lines consistent with refined metals, titanium alloys, composite materials similar to those used in spacecraft construction, elements and compounds that don't naturally cluster together in asteroids. This was manufactured, engineered, built by someone. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Dr. Sarah Chen, a junior researcher working night shifts and reviewing decades-old Hubble Space Telescope archives, found QX437 in photographs from 2003, then 2007, then 2011. The object wasn't just 6 years old in our tracking systems. This thing had been near Earth for over 22 years, moving in and out of observable range, always staying just beyond the focused attention of our instruments, always lurking in the gaps of our surveillance coverage. The question that haunted every scientist involved was obvious and terrifying. How had we missed it for so long? How had something been watching us for more than 2 decades without anyone noticing? The answer, when the analysis team finally pieced it together, was more disturbing than the discovery itself. QX437 hadn't been missed by accident. It had been actively exploiting weaknesses in our detection systems. The object positioned itself in specific orbital zones where our telescopes and satellites rarely pointed their instruments. It used the moon's gravitational field to mask its trajectory, hiding in the complex mathematical chaos that exists in three-body orbital problems. When satellites did occasionally catch glimpses, the data was automatically flagged by computer systems as noise, calibration errors, or artifacts from sensor degradation. Dismissed, ignored, forgotten. Someone, or something, understood our technology well enough to avoid it. They knew where we looked and where we didn't. They knew how our automated systems filtered data. They had studied us long enough to learn our blind spots and exploit them perfectly. As weeks turned into months, with constant observation now focused on QX437, its behavior began to change. In late July 2024, it began transmitting. Not radio waves in the conventional sense, not anything resembling human communication protocols. Instead, it emitted a pattern of focused electromagnetic pulses, rhythmic and complex, spreading across multiple frequencies simultaneously. Like a language. Like a code. Like something trying to communicate or perhaps report its findings. Linguists were brought in. Cryptographers. Mathematicians. Teams working around the clock, analyzing the pulse patterns, searching for structure, meaning, intent. And after 17 days of analysis, they found it. The pulses weren't random static. They were coordinates, hundreds of them, thousands. Precise latitude and longitude positions on Earth's surface, military installations, space agency facilities, nuclear power plants, research laboratories, communication hubs, data centers, power grid infrastructure, major cities, government headquarters. It had been mapping us, cataloging our most critical and vulnerable locations, learning not just where we lived, but where we were weakest. NASA administrators faced an impossible decision. Go public with the information and risk global panic, economic collapse, and mass hysteria. Or stay silent, keep the discovery classified, and hope that whatever this was, it remained just surveillance, just observation, nothing more. But before any decision could be made, QX437 moved. For the first time since 2019, possibly for the first time since 2003, it broke its careful orbit. Not away from Earth. Toward it. Telescopes tracked its descent path with growing alarm. Calculations showed it would enter Earth's atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean in exactly 72 hours. Was this an attack? An invasion? A landing attempt? Or something worse that we couldn't even imagine? World governments were quietly briefed. Defense systems were placed on elevated alert status. Military satellites were repositioned. And scientists scrambled desperately to understand what we were dealing with, what it wanted, and whether we had any hope of stopping it. Then, precisely 30 hours before projected atmospheric entry, QX437 stopped. Its engines, or whatever propulsion system it used, fired in reverse. It decelerated, changed course, and returned to its distant observation orbit, resuming the same pattern it had maintained for years, as if it had changed its mind, as if it had completed whatever test or assessment it was conducting, or as if it had sent all the data it needed to send and received new orders. The message was clear. We had been watched, studied, cataloged, assessed, mapped, and now, whoever or whatever sent QX437 knew everything about us. Our strengths, our weaknesses, our technology, our vulnerabilities. NASA has since completely overhauled its tracking protocols. New systems are being deployed, blind spots are being eliminated. But the question remains, hanging over every scientist and government official who knows the truth. If QX437 was here for 22 years before we noticed it, what else have we missed? How many other objects are out there right now, in the darkness beyond our telescopes, watching, waiting, studying us in ways we haven't even begun to detect? And if this one decided to leave, to return to wherever it came from, what is it reporting? What did it learn? And what happens next? The scariest part isn't that something tracked us for years. It's that we only found it by accident, through the curiosity of one analyst reviewing old data. We weren't looking for it. We weren't even aware such a thing was possible. And if one object could hide that long operating with that level of sophistication and understanding of our systems, how many others are still out there in the dark, silently studying us right now, preparing for something we can't predict or prevent? The universe just got a lot less empty, and a lot more dangerous.